Yeah, we're getting there. Good. Anything else? What about, why is nobody talking about natural law? There were two ways of thinking about law that we were talking yesterday. And the reason we were talking about them together was because that's the modern way of understanding law. So the comparison was between how common law's conception of law is, which is kind of organic and connected to the community, with this relatively modern way of thinking about law, where the emphasis is on a singular source of the law. So foundational authority of law, that is, what is the basic foundation on which, from which law gains its authority. Now this insistence that there should be a foundational basis for the authority of law, where does that come from? Why did suddenly we start thinking like this? So common lawyers were doing all right, they had a conception of law. Then why is it that we have now shifted our attention to both wanting to find a singular foundation on which, from which you can derive, if you like, any test, any sort of standard which will determine for you whether something is law or not law. Okay? Why did the change in, and in the book Davis is saying that this is a paradigm shift that happened in thinking about law. So why did this shift in how we think about law happen? What could have been the students who don't turn off their mobiles in the class? All right. So the point that I'm trying to make is that this is the rise of Enlightenment thinking and the idea that basically positivism is the way to go to find anything or to identify anything as valid knowledge. So what is this positivism that we are talking about? So we're not talking of legal positivism for the minute, but what is it positivism is doing for us here? I mentioned it briefly yesterday. I did not emphasize it. Did anyone pick up the point? Positivism in the sense that this is a way of thinking. So everything that we have done up till now is trying to identify how something is called valid knowledge. So now I am suggesting that the test is the positivist test. That is, in positivist understanding, not everything will be called knowledge. So what will be called knowledge? I'll come back to that in a minute. But in your previous chapter, right at the beginning, Davis had said that she gave a extract from Comte, and basically he's saying that human history of how we consider something to be knowledge has passed through roughly 3 stages. So the first is the idea that knowledge is something that comes from God. That is, it is theological in its understanding. So the argument is that if the knowledge is coming from God, it has to be correct, it has to be the truth. That got replaced by use of arguments that you can use reason to access natural order that already exists, and sometimes this is described as metaphysical basis of knowledge, which is in turn replaced by Enlightenment thought, which says knowledge is something that can be proved by human effort. That is, you observe a reality, and on the basis of that reality you then make postulates. Thank you. So that is what is called empiricism. That is, now the definition of knowledge is basically that you observe certain realities, certain facts, and on the basis of that you reach conclusions. So what constitutes law then becomes, so this is how people organize their lives, and this is what allows us to come to this kind of a general proposition, and that is what makes for valid knowledge now. So what we are getting at is the change in thinking across Europe, if not across the globe, is that what constitutes valid knowledge. So I keep emphasizing valid, 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 meaning that not anything that you put forward will get the label true knowledge. It has to conform to certain standards for it to be accepted. And one shorthand way of saying that is something has to be valid knowledge for it to be given the label knowledge. And how do we decide something is valid is by reference to positivist principle of empiricism. Empiricism meaning basically at a very kind of a non-sophisticated level, that what you observe empirically then gives you the right to say that this is a general proposition based upon that. Now in empiricism there's two propositions that Davis is giving us. She is saying two ways of reaching a conclusion are inductivism and deduction. So have you come across these ideas before? I'm pretty sure you have. What do you understand by inductive reasoning? Okay, taking an example, but also having a repetition of that instance. So you observe a number of times the same phenomenon, and then you generalize this. So the idea is that 100 times you know that when the wind blows from the westerly direction, rains happen. So your general proposition can be, for rain to happen, the wind has to blow from the westerly direction or something like that. So you have observed a regularity of an occurrence, and on the basis of it you are now formulating a proposition or a general rule saying that this is what happens. But are you confident that rain never happens when the wind blows from maybe the northerly direction? So you observe the phenomenon being repeated many times, and on the basis of that you reach the conclusion. But what is the scope of that conclusion is something that we need to come to terms with. So every time the wind blows from the west, or mostly when wind blows from the west, rain happens. General proposition, if you are a weather person, you will say that for rain to happen, wind has to blow from the westerly direction. On the basis of this proposition, can you now also say that rain doesn't happen when the wind blows from the northerly direction? You can't say. So the knowledge that you have gained, or the rule that you have made, then is supposed to be a limited rule, but that limitedness of it gets almost ignored. The other thing that why I'm saying that is that as lawyers we do this very often, and we'll come back to that. What is the deduction method of reaching a conclusion? So do you people have the text in front of you, either as printed or as electronic? So some of you may not have, you might want to sit with somebody for today, and okay, on page 130, are you with me on that? Have you got that document in front of you? On page 130, on top of the page, Davis gives us an example that deduction is a way of logically deriving a conclusion from a set of premises. So instead of observable regularity, now we are talking about the connection between a set of premises. For example, first premise is that all books on philosophy are boring. Second proposition is this book is a book on philosophy. We can conclude the third proposition that she is giving. Yes or no? Okay, the first proposition is all books on philosophy are boring. Second is that this is a book on philosophy. She is saying you can deduce from that this book is boring. Is there a problem with that way of thinking? So the argument is that deduction is a reasonable way or a valid way of reaching a conclusion about certain sets of ideas or certain or reaching any kind of an idea. Now what she is getting at is that deduction is a reasonable method to use, but it doesn't always lead you to a valid conclusion. So why wouldn't it lead you to a valid conclusion always? Because it is dependent upon the first two statements being correct. It can happen, syllogism can happen, but also what she is getting at is that if one of your propositions is not quote unquote correct, then your conclusion has to be incorrect also. So it is not a foolproof method, if you like, of reaching a conclusion. So scientific knowledge basically uses these kinds of processes of reasoning, and they get transferred into studying law. Now, the point of today's lecture is that in the last lecture we saw that positivism claims that our view of law is the correct view. Natural lawyers are saying our view of the law is the correct view. We cannot hold both those points of view simultaneously, yet both of them are saying that we are giving you the truth of the matter. So, first of all, we have a problem in whether what they are saying, should I believe it or not. Second will be between two conflicting views, how do I come to a conclusion. So today's lecture is basically saying that all modern theories of law, so for the moment we are not talking about what are the distinctions between positivism and natural law ways of thinking. In modern understandings of law, basically the emphasis is on that law is, our understanding of law is correct because it is a scientific understanding. So everything is hinging on that scientific proof is necessary for us to accept whether something is true knowledge or not. Alright, so is that acceptable? What problem could you have with it? Why would you want, you're a lawyer, why would you want to go to science meaning natural sciences, to be able to show that what you are doing is correct because it is scientific in nature? Alright, if you're not a lawyer, you're a scientist, what is it about science that gives you confidence that you're finding out the truth of any matter? So we're not talking of law for the time being. Why is it that scientific evidence is considered good enough proof for us to accept that what is being told to us is correct, is true, can be taken on board? It's logically consistent. Anything else? Yeah. It's predictable. Okay. So what you're saying is that it is, sorry, it's verifiable that you can actually prove. Good. Which is what deduction is sort of doing for us. Anybody else? Sorry, a bit louder, please. Yeah, sorry, the fans are.
Science has universal applicability.
So you want to elaborate?
No.
No? All right. Anyone else? So basically, what we are saying is that in modern understanding, and this is what we are saying about positivist understandings of knowledge, is that anything to be able to accept it as knowledge, it should be empirically true, it should be provable, it should show some regularity, it should be rational, it should have that connection of like X leads to Y, leads to Z, and there is a logical connection, etc. If all this is happening, then we can have confidence that what we are dealing with is correct knowledge, is true knowledge. Does anyone have any misgivings about this proposition? All of you are scientists.
Too many surveys and we rely on too much of scientific data just to understand what actually the society is going, or what kind of anything, be it culture or so. Even like we try our best to scientific everything, like to bring in numbers or to understand it more.
Yeah. So why do we have this faith in science is the question I'm asking. You have given me some answers.
Ma'am, one of the reasons why scientific thing falls short at times, because it's mechanical. It cannot hold. It does not take into account the differences at times, and even times morality. It treats human beings as robots, and it thinks everybody is equal at par at everything in the world, which is obviously not true. So that is the only problem with scientific method, or else, yeah.
Good. All right. What I'm getting at here is that in modern understanding, the standard of proof for virtually every way of thinking is considered to be the scientific standard of proof. So why do we have so much faith in the scientific way of thinking is basically because of the things that you are saying, that Davis says to you on page 127 that standard of all knowledge is scientific because it is hard, factual, undeniable, and proved, which is what all of you have picked up on. All right, if that is happening, then we really don't need anywhere else to go, and our faith in science as the standard for providing the truth of the matter is basically now almost like what we had in theological understanding, that is, something is the truth because it comes from a higher authority, usually the God. So one of the arguments that is being put forward is that scientific truth has attained the status, almost a theological status, that is, we don't question it. So it's definitely the dominant paradigm of understanding something, almost anything in our society.
Slightly different, but so why we call the era like 18th century and 19th century era of enlightenment, when reasoning or rationality came up, and it overturned the idea of natural law, or because even if it was not natural law, say religion, but the belief was that it is natural. You cannot just overturn. And why suddenly it happened that it got overturned?
All right, not suddenly, gradually, but
How?
yeah. Yeah.
As Satyendra raised the point of rationality somewhere,
He's using.
so when Satyendra made the point of rationality, I have one. I think that science to an extent is authoritarian. For example, if science is not able to, using its rationale, if science is not able to explain something or comprehend something, it calls it irrational. If whether it be palmistry or something else, but if it is not able to understand it, it calls it irrational. So in that way, it demands strict obedience, and anything which goes away, which it is not able to understand,
Okay, I get what you're saying, but the point that I'm trying for us to grapple with is that basically scientific method of reaching the truth of any matter is the dominant paradigm for our times. That it's very hard for us to be able to question that by saying that no, you have problems, this is a better way of thinking. So first point that I want to make is that we do live in times where scientific standard of proof is the standard. I'll come to your point a little bit later that there are problems with this standard, but what has this got to do with law? So we're not doing science, we are doing law here. Then your point that why is it that rationality has taken on this importance suddenly? Not suddenly, gradually, and this is what the point about change of thinking from pre-modern times to modern times is that in modern times we don't have the faith in being able to find a higher truth through religion or through God or whatever, and that is why we now need some basis of deciding what we know is correct. So if you don't have that earlier faith, then you have to find another means of now being able to say that this is our, if you like, the test of whether something is true or not true. The standard that we have come up with is the positivist view of knowledge. That is, you observe and you empirically test your propositions. If it turns out that you can hold up that proposition by reference to empirical facts, then that's one way of saying that that is the truth. So that's why I was using that example, the wind blows from the west, it rains. We are entitled to say that there is a general proposition possible that for rains to happen, the wind should blow from the westerly direction. So what have we done is, rather than put our faith in a higher authority, we are now saying that as competent, autonomous individuals, human beings, we have the capacity to come up with a way of thinking that will allow us to decide whether something is objective truth or not. So for the last two times I have been talking about the law wanting to forever say that law should be given that allegiance because it gives you access to objective truth. So what is this objective truth is basically that whether you reach that conclusion or I reach that conclusion, our method is what allows us to reach that conclusion. Our confidence comes from that we have correct ways of thinking that lead us to the truth of any matter. Alright, this is what the scientists do. Why are we bothered about it? You're very polite. You've been sitting there quietly. Wouldn't you want to ask? Like, very well, but this is not a class on science. Sorry, say that again. who uses? The legal thinkers or the lawyer's way of talking.
When they
is-
claim that this is right and this is wrong for the positives laws, this is the basis based on this type of deduction or in forms of thought.
Exactly. So this is what I was wanting us to come to, that basically modern way of thinking is relying on scientific method to be able to say that what we are telling you is correct. It is true. That is why you should subscribe to my way of thinking about law. So it is law's way of gaining legitimacy by invoking the scientific standard of truth as its standard. Anyone wants to yeah?
She's saying like this, as we have the assumptions kind of understanding from science, so we are having the same thing in law.
We are trying the same
Huh,
thing.
Same thing, like making law, and then we are assuming that things will be happening of such kind, and this will be the rule or law.
So it's like saying that this is the dominant paradigm of our time is scientific knowledge is the correct knowledge in any field, and everyone, every discipline, if you like, wants to be able to claim objectivity by calling itself a science. Can you think of any examples? Political science? Anything else? Yeah, so every discipline that you can think of basically is attaching the label science to its name to gain that credibility, that just as in natural sciences, so in this science. One of the examples Davis is using is that not so long ago there was also a university subject called domestic science. In other words, any area of knowledge would like to call itself science so that it can gain the credibility that it is telling you the truth, and law is no exception. So law is basically saying, or the ways of talking about law are using the term legal science. So legal science is our way of saying that how we go about reasoning, how we go about making propositions is also scientific, and that's why you can have the confidence that we should believe it. It kind of links up with the question you asked earlier, that why have we started putting so much emphasis on rationality? So this is another way of saying that it is, law is rational, law's method is rational, and the conclusions we reach should therefore be, you should have confidence that you're reaching the correct conclusions. And that's what we saw yesterday, that positivism's claim to fame is basically that we have an objective way of reasoning which allows us to reach the truth of the matter, and that's why you should be subscribing to our understanding of law. The other point that I want to make is that modern ways of thinking, and I'm only using natural law and positivist thinking here just for simplicity, their claims are not that this is a theory of law. Their claims are that there cannot be any other explanation because what we have arrived at is the truth of the matter. So where do you get the confidence of saying that we have arrived at the truth, at the truth, is basically by using ideas about objective knowledge, ideas about rationalities, ideas about which are kind of an extension of scientific way of thinking. And what is the scientific way of thinking we are looking at here is that more often than not, it is to do with empiricism. That is, something is open to proof. If you can prove it, then there is no argument that it must be what you're saying it is. Now, this notion that anything that is scientific then leads us to truth, puts immense amount of faith in the scientific method. Two things have to happen. One, do we clearly understand what is scientific method? And second, is it transferable to studying every other discipline, for our purposes, the legal discipline? Are you with me on this? That is, it may be that scientific way of thinking is the dominant paradigm, but yesterday we were saying that just because something is a dominant paradigm does not necessarily make it that it has reached the final truth of the matter. Should the same question now be directed at what does it mean to use scientific ways of thinking? Want to say something?
Somewhere tries to prove or relate it with science, natural law. So why this is happening? Like, even if we say some right which is which you can relate to higher law, they again try to use scientific idea to prove, because if we take examples of, say, slavery or right to equal, anything, like they're just trying to accommodate it with this idea of rationalizing.
Yeah. So the point is that, as yesterday you had this discussion, that modern natural law is not necessarily reaching for something that is supernatural or that is theological in origin, but we are saying that there is a higher set of principles that we have access to, and in that sense they are avoiding this tension between something that is a religious and irrational belief and something that can be a rational way of thinking. Now, if your point is that why this emphasis on rationality, then that is the distinctive feature of our times, that rational thought is the way to arrive at any conclusions. A few days ago, you had the comment from Amita that the how we understand rationality itself can be questioned, but that will happen a little bit later down the track. For the time being, I just wanted to for us to run with the idea that because science is rational and law is also claiming to be a science, what conclusions law reaches have to be then correct or have to be the truth of the matter. Now, in this way of thinking, scientific method is being used as your touchstone. Is there a problem in that? Have we put all our faith in science validly or a bit immaturely?
I had 2 points to make. One was that I think which you have said, but I just wanted to reiterate that point about that one level of the alliance making between law and science is also happening because of this this privileging of objectivity and believing that we are creating a truth which is not in any way driven by our own biases and prejudices. It is something which is in fact out there, and all that we have done is put it together and like collated it and put it out there, but it's something which in fact exists, and consequently that kind of an alliance making, it's a point which you've already made, I'm just reiterating it. For me, the other thing which is also happening is that you are drawing from this whole business of the kind of authority that science as a discipline gets, to want to like draw from that authority and sort of reinforce your legal propositions by saying that because they are scientific propositions, they have a similar kind of authority. And the scientific method, the point which you were making, and for me that's we'll come to it as a logical progression, that whatever then doesn't fit your frame is not science, is not law. So the presumption, once having been adopted and reinforced, and reinforcement is something you're seeking from science to get your legal propositions and unquestioning kind of status. And if you recollect yesterday's class, one of the things which was coming in on a constant basis is that what we are saying is law because we have followed the legal method to arrive at what we are saying as is law, and hence this has to be followed. And the question of challenge and question of any kind of dissent and disagreement doesn't exist. Because that's what will get us that stability, that's what will get us the kind of objectives that we want to reach to. So I'm just wanting us to I just want to flag this one thing on there is a certain definition of science, a particular definition of science which is being adopted, and it is not the only definition of science, and hence that critical at least question should stay in our minds. This alliance is happening to reach a certain place, but it's a very uncritical alliance.
It's like putting all our faith in the idea that
Yeah,
scientific knowledge is objective.
Yeah, it's a deification of science. It's a deification of science. It's like it's like science then becomes the god of modern times, so to say.
Did you want to say something?
Maybe I can't sit through your entire lecture, but just in terms of framing the scientific method, there's already work which is acknowledging that our classical invocation of the scientific method itself is flawed. So for instance, Thomas Kuhn and his work on the structure of scientific revolutions is not only talking about documentation, observation and verification as the first step, but also the ability to self-correct as you encounter something that you can't explain on your own terms. And in very clear terms, when you think about the application of the scientific method to the common law, apart from the process of induction and deduction, remember we are also dealing with analogies, right? So our analogies, in a sense, giving the human mind the sort of interpretive freedom to think about comparisons, not just in terms of subject matter, but also comparisons across time, comparisons across jurisdictions, comparisons across different contexts. So in that sense, even our understanding of the scientific method can possibly be reworked. It's not just a process of arriving at a definite conclusion at a given point of time. It's also about having that skepticism about your own certainty, which is, I think, already quite well advanced in the discussion in the philosophy of science as well.
So basically how Davis is progressing is, she's first asking us to identify why do we have so much faith in the scientific method, and why legal thinking has kind of hitched its wagon to scientific method to gain legitimacy. And then she goes on to do what you were saying, is saying, hang on, let's find out what is the scientific method that we are putting so much emphasis on. Are you also saying that is it really that good? Is it really doing the job that it is claiming to be doing? To be even asking those questions, we are accepting for the time being that it is possible to reach the truth of the matter, whether it happens to be law, it happens to be physics, it happens to be any discipline. So this notion that objective knowledge is available by either going through a scientific method or going through law using scientific kind of ideas is still holding on to this notion that truth is available, is out there, and all we have to do is go and get it. What Davis started with was saying that we have to be very alert to the idea that objectivity is not out there. Objective knowledge is an impossibility, and if objective knowledge is not available for just going and getting, what view of knowledge will you work with? So we'll come to that more in when we talk about critical theories of law. But today what she is doing in this chapter is basically saying, all right, legal science, like political science, like domestic science or whatever else, has tried to gain credibility by calling itself a science. What is the scientific method? Let's have a close look at it. So what is the scientific method she is saying? At the very basic level, you are using reasoning which is either by induction or by deduction and reaching conclusions which then you say must be true. As we saw at the beginning, with both there are many problems, but also what she wants to say is, before you go down this track, understand very well what the scientists understand